Alright everybody, welcome back to Bradshaw's workshop. It's Monday morning, I'm in the workshop, it's absolutely freezing. My fingers feel like they're going to drop off, so I'm going to keep this brief and hopefully I'll be able to start work on a warm engine. This is my car again. Over the weekend I've noticed a bit of diesel on the floor, so this morning when I started it up, I took the top cover off and I noticed that I had diesel absolutely gushing out from behind my fuel pump down there. Now if you look back as far as you can see, the centre of the screen, you'll see it's quite wet there. Now that seems to absolutely gush out, especially when the vehicle's started. It doesn't seem too bad once it's warmed up. In fact, I think it stops leaking once it's warmed up. But I do and have been getting the odd smell of diesel every now and again, especially when I stick my toe to the floor. It's a bit whiffy, and it's not like a diesel smoke smell, it's a raw diesel smell. So I'm going to whip this strut brace off to provide a bit more access of getting the top cover off. This strut brace is off a coupe model, and I'm going to start investigating investigating a little squeak that I've also got going on down here. It sounds like it could be coming from my alternator. Now bear in mind I'm pulling quite a lot of power for my sound system. I've got 160 amps worth of amps in the back of the car, and the alternator I think is only a 180 amp capacity, so it wouldn't surprise me if I started to fry the alternator. I've got a spare engine over here which come off a car I bought for scrap. Somebody's done the head gasket on this engine and it's still pressurising coolant, so I'm going to take the diesel pump off this, the high pressure fuel pump, and whatever ancillaries I might need to stop the squeak happening on mine. This one's my spare engine for parts, and this one over here is a complete engine ready for anything catastrophic went wrong with mine. I can swap an engine out in a day and that's that. So as I said, I'm going to whip this strut brace off and we'll start investigating a little squeak noise that seems to be coming from down by the alternator or the aircon. Well, I spoke earlier about a squeak I had coming from my aux belt somewhere. So I've taken off my under tray and my arch liner. I've got a piece of hose in my hand, and we're going to run the vehicle before I pull it apart, try and find out where this little squeak's coming from. It's very much a lower sounding squeak. Yeah, I think that's my alternator. We'll have a listen from above. Oh yeah. Now I'd say the little chirping sound here is actually the clutch on the end of the alternator there. So we've got a spare. We'll whack that on and hopefully it shuts it up a little bit. Well, just a quick update as time goes on. I've removed my ECU, I've removed my auxiliary drive belt and all of my cambelt covers. I'm just about to whip off the cambelt tensioner and the cambelt itself. So that's that little bolt down there that you can see. That's the tensioner. There's an idler at the front there, right the way down. The light's not very good, so you can't see. That's probably the best you're going to see down there. It's locked up on the camshaft. It's not locked on the fuel pump because it's a common rail pump. The crankshaft is locked off with one of these thingies, flywheel locking tool basically. I've got a couple of these, so that's locked off. Not only is it locked off, I've put a couple of marks on there just to make sure that at all times timing doesn't move. So I'm now just about to undo this down here, and we'll whip the belt off. You can stay with me for this if you want. Oh, I've also noticed that this fuel pipe, it's been rubbing on the engine cover a little bit, so I've got a spare over there. I'll whip the spare one on whilst we've got all the fuel system apart and all the fuel pump out. So let's get this belt off, shall we? Hey, can't find this 13mm. Can't find me 13mm spanner. Look, doing a video. How good's that, eh? Is it over here? No. Is it in my tools? No. Tell you what, we'll cut the video and we'll come back. Right, well I found my 13mm spanners, so let's get the cam belt tensioner off. Light's a bit poor. So here we go. We're on. Ready? There we go. That's loose. And now we can pull the belt loose and start to pull the belt off. Okay. Feed it past the engine mount, around the back of the engine, and we head underneath. Bring the torch, Chris. Well, our belt's ready. I'm waiting. Give it a wiggle. There you come, please. What are you caught on? Oh, that's typical, isn't it? There we go. Caught around the top of the water pump. One old belt. It's not actually in that bad shape, to be honest. This has done about 85,000 miles, so it's 15k overdue. It's a Gates kit, or was a Gates kit. Quite impressed with that. So that's the cam belt off. Now I'm going to drain the coolant out the bottom of the radiator, and we'll whip the water pump out, which gives us time then, whilst that's all draining off, to set about taking this fuel pump out. Now I'll have to undo a bit of this loom, I'm guessing, and we'll take the fuel filter housing out, which should give us some good access. Back in a bit. Well, the coolant's draining out nicely down there in the bucket. Just worth noting that there's a couple of other points that need opening up when you drain the coolant. So here's one on top of the radiator, usually a bit stiff. I don't think this needs removing all the way. It just needs partially removing. You'll know when it's worked because you'll probably hear air. Okay, that's out anyway. There was no air in there. Certainly no vacuum from it all draining out. You've got another bleed point here, so you need to undo this. It's a little valve cap. Don't drop it. There we go. Put that somewhere safe, so that's up on the scuttle panel. And I do believe just down here you've got another bleed screw just there, which needs to come off. This is for your heaters. And there we go. Put them somewhere safe, remember. I'm going to start taking the water pump off next, so I'll have to clean up all this on the floor, get the electrical stuff out of the way, because I'll probably have a bit of a spillage. Taking the water pump out, I've done 3 out of 5 bolts, and it's started leaking out now, so this is where things get a little bit messy. My floor gets wet again, but we'll have this out in a matter of moments. Didn't actually get much drain out the coolant system once I undid the bleed screws, but never mind. Just got to make sure when we bleed it up that we do it well. These are a pig to bleed up at the best of times. So with that bolt nearly undone, I'm going to give the water pump a bit of a tap and it should give out. There we go. I'll undo the last bolt. Oh, there's plenty of coolant left in there, isn't there? I wonder why them bleed points didn't do much. Ah, good job I got a set clothes, isn't it? There we go. There we go. Right, thank you. Right, well, as we saw a minute ago, the water pump's off. I've now pretty much removed everything from the fuel pump. So fuel pump's ready to drop out nearly. I've just got to take the pulley off. Now on the end of the pulley there's 2 threaded holes. If you're lucky enough you might find a fine thread to fit in these in your bolt collection. Fortunately I've got quite a few. These appear to be the same bolts as what's used on the XUD engines, and these come off the top cambelt cover. So I'm going to let you hold my phone for me, and what we do, if you want to come around this side, is now we just tighten up these 2 bolts which I've threaded in here, and with the main bolt off the middle we should be able to pop off the pulley quite easily. That doesn't seem to be wanting to move. Let's give it a little tap and see what happens. Find a small hammer. There we go. That's popped off nicely. Looks like it's sunk into the old pump a little bit, but I don't care about that because I've got another pump going on. Right, well as you can see I've got the fuel pump off the car. That's sitting over here on a bench. So here's the old fuel pump, and it's quite apparent what's gone wrong with this actually. On this back piece here which is bolted on, I think there's a gasket of such in there, and it seems to be rusted away and blowing fuel out the gasket. Now when I moved it earlier it was all running through this crack here along the back, so that's that. I think this fuel pump's good for the bin. It's done 348,000 miles, and to say it's only needed a fuel pressure regulator isn't bad going, to be honest. This one here I've taken off the donor engine. Actually looks like it's had a refurb. However, I'm going to swap out the fuel pressure sensor for my fuel pressure sensor. This is a genuine Peugeot item with new seals, which was put in about 18 months ago, because my map file was causing too much fuel pressure and it was blowing past the seals inside, and what had happened is that the fuel rail pressure sensor would pick up overfueling and it would cut my engine, and I mean cut it. It would just cut out, so you could go in for an overtake and you're up next to somebody and next thing you know your car's just died completely. You've got to drift to a stop, wait 30 seconds before you can even try to start it again. So that was a bit of a nightmare. So anyway, I'm going to swap this for this one, and we'll get this pump back on the car. I need to whip this little bracket off here for the dipstick, and that's that. I'll keep you posted. So I've got my fuel pressure regulators removed from both of these pumps, and I'm just about to fit my old sensor, which is a new sensor, into my new pump. I thought I'd take the opportunity to show you what can go wrong with these. So on the very end of these fuel pressure regulators, you've got a very fine gauze filter. Now, as you can see on the left-hand one, which was replaced about 18 months ago, it's relatively clear. It's quite difficult to see. Let me see if I can get my camera to just zoom in for you there, on the tip itself. No, there we go. Zoom out a bit. Now, as you can see, that one looks relatively clear. It's got a little bit of a few deposits in there, but this one on the right-hand side here looks pretty much blocked up. In fact, it looks like it's just a solid tip without a gauze in there. Now, what happens here is these tips will block up, and it causes the engine to hunt, especially on idle. So you have to replace these. It's virtually impossible to clean out the tips. So as you can see on the left-hand one, it had some new seals on it. Now they've performed a lot better than this one. This seal's probably never been out for the life of this pump, and it's quite compressed and flat. If I was to fit that with the map that I've got fitted on my vehicle, the excess fuel pressure would just cause it to go into limp mode and cut out, like we said before. So this goes for a lot of HDI engines. So whether it be the 2 litre HDI, the 2.2 HDI, they all suffer from this. And what happens like I said a minute ago, is you get this hunting problem, similar to that of an idle control valve on a petrol. Right, well my fuel pump's on and that's all plumbed in. I've replaced this pipe because the bottom end of it felt quite baggy around the fuel pump. So obviously I've taken one off the spare engine. I've got my new Gates cambelt on, my new water pump in and the tensioners. And before I tighten up the bottom crank pulley, I'm just going to give the engine a few rotations by hand just to make sure it all times up okay. So I'll let Hans hold the phone. There you go. And can you let me know when the writing's back round at the top, please?
Yep.
Fantastic, cheers. This might take a moment. Getting a sweat on with this.
Nearly there. That's it, back in place now?
Yeah, yep. Alright. So, I'm going to put the crank back on a temporary timing mark, which is about here. And see how everything lines up at the top. So at the moment, you can see my timing mark here is 180 degrees out to this one. So I need to give the crank another whole turn. Come on. Nearly that. Oh. Okay. So now my timing mark here should line up, and my timing mark here lines up. That indicates that the belt is correct. We should be able to get about a total of 90 degrees twist out of this on the tension of it. So that's 45 degrees each way without forcing it. So I'm happy with that, and I'm happy with the tension. So I'm going to lock up the flywheel again. We'll tighten up the crank bolt and we'll start getting all the cam pulleys back on. Sorry, the cam covers back on, and the auxiliary belt to follow. Shortly after that, we should be starting it. Right, well the engine's nearly back together. I've done the cam belt, water pump, tensioners, the aux belt's back on, the fuel pump's fitted obviously, and all I've got left now is to fit these two fuel hoses and put the ECU and its tray back in and the engine covers, and then we'll fill it up with coolant. So the crank bolt's tightened up. For anybody who doesn't know, the 2.2 HDI engine, I don't think there's a timing hole behind the starter motor like most of the DWs. However, just on the back of the engine on the gearbox, you've got this bolt here, and if you remove that, you can peel back a metal plate which bends quite easily, and that'll give you access to the flywheel, which of course you can lock off with your locking tool or a screwdriver or whatever you want to use. Obviously you can see it from here, but the chances of you getting anything on that are pretty slim. So I'm going to get back out now. We're going to get the ECU and its tray back in, coolant in, and we'll go in for the start and check that this fuel pump doesn't leak. and I'll start thinking about heading home. It's 10 to 5. I've got Justin coming up. He's bringing a 305 up, so an old Peugeot 305 estate. Now Justin's won. He won best car at Pugfest 2019 with one of his 305s. And he's not long bought another version. I think it's a diesel rather than a petrol. So I've got a few bits to do on that. But in the meantime, let's stay focused, get this back on track, and hopefully I can go home today. Right, well, I'm just about to stick some coolant in. Old Justin's here, famous Justin, and Hans is going to record me doing some of this. And feel free to ask some questions, mate. So I've already dropped my 2 litres of coolant in here.
What's the red one?
Yeah, the red one. And now we've got to fill this until we get water out of here, and the bleed point at the back. So we've switched the music off. With a little bit of luck, we can hear things. But luck isn't on my side today, look, because coolant doesn't want to go down. We'll give it a bit of a blow, shall we? Try again. There we go.
I can hear it.
Yeah. It's common on the 406s that this is quite hard to get bled up. Last time I did it, I think it was your car, wasn't it?
Yep,
Yeah.
sure was.
Took me half a day to get the water round. It's your car, Justin, isn't it?
You can play with the 305 now.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for that.
That's all right.
Not.
You know you like a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Peugeot.
Is it rusty, though?
Patches.
Patches, yeah. That's what they all say. Just got a little bit of rust here, Chris. Next thing you know, a 20p sized hole's a 20 pound note sized hole. Oh man, this is taking forever. I might fall asleep, have a snooze. Anyone need a toilet yet? Cold weather, trickling water.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, just you got a couple of years of me, haven't you? I can hear water. So we're coming out the bleed screw at the back over there. If I let this go down, it'll probably stop. Let's chuck a bit more in. Right, so I've got a good flow out the rear bleed nipple. I'm going to whack my dust cap back on now. This is a black one. Blue one belongs on the front, above the thermostat. Don't drop it, Chris. Right, I'll come back to that in a minute. Once we've got the others to bleed through. We might need a little bit of persuasion, so you'll probably end up seeing me giving my expansion tank a kiss of life. Right, just gonna grab more water. Pause that one. Twerk a bit more in here. Bottle's quite full actually, so not expecting it to take much. I'd just like to see it at the top of the radiator and out this bleed screw, neither of which I don't do anything.
coming up.
Alright, a bit of water there. Let's top this back up now. What's the chances I've got to go and jack the back end of the car up now? Hey?
Oh, what, to level it out?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to try the Coke bottle method on this. If you want to pause the video for me. Right, so I've got an old coolant bottle, put a bit of tape around the head of it, and if we hold this into the expansion bottle now, we can increase the level. Now we'll need to hold it in because it will trickle out, but with a little bit of luck, here we go, you can just see the water coming through here, just there, and we'll get our blue valve cap and we'll stick that back on. Now I think what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to double check the black cap at the back on the heater hoses, and we can see if we've got any air left in that. So we're slacking it off. Do we get water? I'm going to get wet fingers, hopefully. Yeah. Lovely stuff. Right. That's the coolant system bled. So we're going to run the vehicle up now and see what's happening with this fuel pump. Well, battery's back on. We're going to open up, give this a try. Ah, there we go. And with a bit of luck, we've got no leaks. So first I think we'll prime it up. Let's go. I can hear fuel. I can't see any leaking. Can we just have a look down the back there? I'll grab my torch. Right, well it seems like there's no leaks. Obviously the pump's a little bit dirty from where I've had the pipes off and everything. But I can't see the suspect drip that was there this morning. So I think we'll try and start it, see how it goes. I'll give it another prime first, eh? Just for good luck. Right, let's go. Hey! We're off. What are you doing, Justin?
Checking your water.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. Probably need a top up in a minute, but so I got all that rad weld around there everywhere. I replaced the radiator a few weeks ago, and because the old engine that the radiator come off, they'd done a head gasket on it, but it was still pressurising, so everything was full of bloody rad weld. Can't stand that stuff. I'd rather just fix a problem instead of masking it up. Yeah. Right, well I'm going to end video. I'm going to get the engine covers back on. Right, so I'm just going to check underneath now for any leaks, which I don't think there are. So we'll concentrate around the water pump area for now. No, nothing there. And the fuel pump area, a bit difficult to see from down here, but I can't see any diesel dripping down. Obviously there's quite a lot of mess left over from where it was leaking now. So there we have it. I'm going to do my alternator at another time because we're short of that today. It's now 6:15. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Bradshaw's Workshop on YouTube or Facebook. See you later.